If you've been holding off on buying a home until 2025 here in Denver, this video is going to cover everything you need to know about 2025, the benefits of it, and how to pull the trigger.
Before we start off talking about all our tips and tricks and opportunities for buyers in 2025, we want to do a quick little recap of 2024 because, man, this has been quite a crazy year for real estate all across the country.
And whether you bought, whether you didn't buy, there's definitely some great evidence and just some great things to look at, almost like a case study when it comes to what happened, where listings were at, where the offers were coming in at, how did people win, where were they not winning, because it does give some context for 2025 and moving ahead. All right, as you know, interest rates have been up for a while. They've been up for probably the past 2.5 years, 2 years, 2.5 years. Now, when we say up, here's something that I want you guys to keep in mind. We're coming up from 1.9%, 2%, 2.5%. Post-COVID, had a crazy market with super low interest rates that who knows if we'll ever see those again. So when we talk about going up, we're really gonna start talking about 6% and higher, because anytime we're getting sub 6%, we're actually in a healthy market, and that's what's to be expected where interest rates are at. So when we talk about coming up, just understand, I'm sure a lot of you remember as far as post-COVID when you were getting the 1.9s and then 2.5s and what's healthy. And then, hey, where it just started to go up to where people slow down and just stop buying. Not necessarily altogether. We still had plenty of buyers that were coming through, more so out of necessity with job transfers and things like that. But I mean, we were creeping 8%. 8.03%.
Yeah, we're right around 7 right now on average.
Which is down from what it was, but this past year, like, it got up as high as 8%, didn't it? Which is significantly high, which is what did cause a lot of, I think, just slower traffic outside of people that just had to move. Eli's gonna talk about a slight decrease in just overall home prices where they were at. My opinion, don't quote me, my opinion, I think some of the home decrease came later in the year after interest rates just hit a high enough point. All the buying kind of slowed down, so the people that were buying were coming in under asking, and people were okay to take some of that because there was just not enough offers coming in on their home, so they would take the offer that they got, which means they had to settle a little bit lower. Now, benefit is Colorado still has plenty of equity. We've got a great, healthy market here. So, you know, even though they were going a little bit under asking price on their home, still plenty of equity, still able to do that. We'll get into buy downs and different things where some clients had some wins this year. But ultimately, I just want to just blab for a second to just give you guys a little bit of context on how I see it personally as far as how the year went.
Now, one of the most important bullet points that I think we want to note here, as Will said, this past year, we saw an average home price across the entire Denver metro area, so not just Denver, the entire metro area, of about $542,000, which was just a 1.4% decrease from the year prior. Now, here's why I think that's really important, because when we were going through sort of the COVID bubble, quote unquote, people were calling it a bubble. Whenever we saw the pent-up buyer demand from COVID die down, interest rates spike up, people thought that they were gonna see 10, 15, 20% decreases in Colorado's average home price, and we didn't. So exactly to Will's point, Colorado's market is very healthy and very stable, because when interest rates went from 2.5% up to 8%, again, we only saw a 1.5% decrease in average home price.
Correct, and traffic got low across the country slower than 2008 when there was an actual housing market crash, and then as early as like 1995 style numbers. So traffic definitely did slow down to, let's call it rush hour traffic per se, but percentage-wise, it was only just 1% decrease. So again, just speaks to the healthy market. Obviously, interest rates have come down as we're getting into 2025. That could possibly be post-election. A lot of times with elections, those come down, but the wins that we had this year, before we get to 2025 and what you guys should be looking forward to, the wins we had were because there's still plenty of equity here in Colorado. Not only were folks getting under asking, a lot of times they were getting rate buy downs or 2-1 buy downs on their rates. So even though rates were hitting as high as 8, 7.5, 7.1, 7.2, obviously depending on credit and depending on time during the market of this past year, 2024, there was still plenty of space to give like that 2-1 buy down. Let's put them at like a 5.1, a 5.5, and hey, does that work? It worked for me. I bought 2 years ago, right? And the interest rates were higher, and we used a 2-1 buy down when we got the concessions from the client that or from the seller that we bought our personal home from here in Southeast Aurora. And then right when it was gonna go back up to that 7%, after the first 2 years of the discount rate was gone, I was able to refi and get it back down, right? Because the rates came back down. So we timed it well, and it worked out, and a lot of clients had some things work out for them. So again, when people talk about, you know, marry the home, date the rate, it's cliche. I'm not a big fan of that, because I think the reality is more people need to move. They need to buy, they need to own homes, whether it's lifestyle change, kids going to college or downsizing, they're having kids and they're getting a bigger home, there's a work transfer, so they have to move and they want to own a home. Some people just don't have a choice. The majority of us just need to, versus this whole timing of a market. And it's more so of you guys just looking at, if you have to buy, where can I make pivots? What do I not know that I should know? How can I still be competitive even in a market where I feel like it's not the best time to buy? What about it could be a great time to buy? And it was the absolute fact that we have a ton of equity here, and sellers were okay to do those things and still give you a competitive rate when buying your home.
That's right. All these things that Will's talking talking about, these are tools in the toolbox, right? That we have at our disposal whenever we're in these sort of markets. Now, out of the homes that sold last year, about 18% of them did have price reductions. Now, that may seem like kind of a low number, especially when you're looking at just the overall market conditions, but what that's not factoring into account are people who utilize tools like this. So a lot of people that are factoring in seller concessions to use an interest rate buy down, they're offering right around asking price and then asking for concessions. So there could have been more than that 18% where ultimately the sellers were netting less than asking price. But that just goes to show, again, healthy market, tools in the toolbox, and options that we have for you buyers whenever you're going to purchase in a market like this.
Correct. And when you're looking at getting 2 full points down off of your loan, that significantly changes your all in as far as like your mortgage payment per month, compared to just a couple $1,000s off or $5,000 off or $10,000 off on a home. It's the rate and just the way that it's structured that can save you a lot of money. So a lot of folks just opted to still offer what people were asking in their home as long as it was reasonable, but then ask for the rate buy down concession.
All right, enough living in the past. Let's talk about the future. What's going to be different moving into 2025?
So first and foremost, as rates continue to drop a little bit, like we're not sure how far they're going to drop. I bet it still stays in like a healthy market. There is some word on the street. Look up your sources. Don't want to get too stuck in the weeds on that, but rates are going to come down and they're going to be in a healthy spot. You're also just going to get more activity. Post-election, post-holidays, we're just starting to pick up. We're already starting to feel just from our YouTube channel with all of you guys. By the way, love and appreciate everybody that has used us as far as our services, as far as being real estate for them. And just as a reminder, we are licensed realtors here in the state of Colorado, and yes, just as much as we love making these videos, we would love more to help you with those real estate needs. Number that's popping up below are the guys from the phone calls, text messages, and those emails. So if we can't help you with your real estate needs, we would love to. But getting back to my point, what does this mean as far as like you guys moving into 2025? Well, we're already seeing a pickup as far as buyers via YouTube and just buyers through our sphere of influence, some of our database, et cetera, et cetera. So like, hey, things are getting busier, which means before you know it, you'll start having multiple offers on homes. As rates trickle down just a tad bit, that'll also solicit, I think they say for every quarter point or half point, adds like 1 million buyers to the market.
Oh, geez.
Don't quote me. I think it was from some national website that I was looking at. At a national level. At a national level. So, but the point is, as rates trickle down a little bit, and as we're already starting to see things pick up because of the year, because of post-election, whatever your reasons are, whatever you guys want to think about, it's happening, right? So there's this window right now for your first quarter of this year, between right now and like first quarter of 2025, where you're going to have that window of rates slightly coming down. Maybe some more offers on homes, but not terribly amount to where you can still be effective with asking for concessions for a traditional buy down or a 2-1 buy down, or coming just under asking price, or just having some flexibility with some different things that you might need specifically for you in your home buying process, right? But as we get further into 2025, my prediction is some of that, it just might get a little bit more competitive as the year goes on.
The other thing that we're seeing, and this has actually been a really, really great thing for Colorado, because when we've had these past couple years that were a little bit slower, what that did was that gave builders who are creating new inventory a chance to catch up to the market a little bit. Now, Colorado notoriously has had really, really low inventory compared to the amount of buyers that are out there.
We average about 2 to 3 weeks of inventory here in Colorado versus like a buyer's market would technically, they'd say it's 6 months. I don't know if we've been in real estate just under a decade. We've never seen a buyer's market. We've never had 6 months of inventory on the market. And what we mean by that is if no other homes went for sale or were built, all the homes would be purchased and gone within 6 months. That'd be a buyer's market. The biggest market I've ever seen in Colorado is 4 weeks.
4
maybe
weeks.
5 when it slowed down.
I think at the worst, maybe went up to like a month and a half, maybe 2 months at the absolute max.
Well, we've just never seen, I mean, we're talking 2 months at our slowest.
Yeah.
And they say a buyer's market is 6 months. So there's just, again, like, I don't know how much we want to give weight to that, right? Because we've never ran out of home. Everyone's always found a home, et cetera, et cetera. And when you guys are looking at different states around the country, healthy market is probably never a buyer's market. There's probably never 6 months of inventory. Houston, Dallas, places in Florida, Colorado, there's probably never a buyer's market, right? Like I can't imagine.
Unless 2008 tons of foreclosures. Even though on paper it is not technically a buyer's market, it feels like a buyer's market. And that's one of the reasons that, we've had the amount of buyers buy that we have this year. That's part of the reason that we have tons of people in our database who are positioned to purchase in 2025 because of all the opportunities out there that just previously haven't been out there for buyers because it's just been such a heavy seller's market. So even though technically, yes, still seller's market per inventory, it's going to feel like a buyer's market due due to the amount of opportunities you have.
Especially post-COVID, it felt like driving 180 miles an hour. If you
Yeah,
go
right.
180 and slow down to 120, allegedly, I don't know this, allegedly it feels slow.
Sure, yeah.
It feels slow, right? So food for thought. But getting back into new builds, the main point here is because of some of like that slowdown as far as interest rates trickling up and people not buying and it's slowing down a bit, it's given new build construction a lot of time to just build the rest of their expected inventory and have some spec move-in ready homes available, which is awesome because we've been covering a lot of big builders, a lot of great spec homes that we've seen, a lot of great details we've been covering, and a lot of them, is it with the loan partners that they have, some of them are offering even as low as like 0.99, I said that correctly, 1.9, 2.9 on their builds. I think it's Land and Sea. They're up north in Colorado. They're doing some great things. A lot of new builds are offering amazing rates moving into 2025. So if a new build community is for you, covered a ton of them. We're going to continue to cover them. This could be a great way where you guys can get a great home at a great rate, get your feet wet in Colorado, stay for a couple of years, and as things adjust, or as you want to make some moves into some different communities, hey, great. But these new build communities, not only are they amazing, I want to leave you with this as well on the new build thing. Colorado as a whole is significantly unincorporated. We are not slammed like Florida. We don't have just people top to bottom, west to east.
Can't
you just
grow
don't.
anywhere,
You go
right.
35 minutes east out of Denver, and you're in Whoville. What do you call those things? Tumbleweeds? There's tumbleweeds and stuff. And what does that mean when it comes to new builds? It means that because there's still a lot of like unincorporated, unbuilt area in Colorado, these new build communities, these master plan communities, they're in great areas. They're not just like, imagine building a new build community like a master plan community in California. Where's it gonna be? Indio? In the desert? I don't know. But it's not gonna be prime real estate because of how condensed and how full that it is. Colorado is not that. We've got great locations that are still not developed, and a lot of these new build communities that are building, Sterling Ranch being one of them. They're still building. They'll be building Sterling Ranch, guys, for the next 10 years. Amazing. It rests up against Roxborough Park. It's right there off of the west
Front Range.
Front Range. Amazing. It's beautiful. And that's just one example of many. But if you've been thinking about master plans, if you've been seeing some of our YouTube videos, there's so many great things. The rates are great, and the locations are also awesome as well.
And this brings us to our next section, which is where we're going to dive into where we see the biggest opportunities for buyers in 2025.
100%.
So number one being new builds. I love that there's tons of places to build that are all within an hour of Denver and an hour of the airport. But then also coming into 2025, as we're seeing this increased inventory and then interest rates starting to drop very slightly. Personally, I don't think they're going to drop a ton, but we are forecasting a slight drop. So you will see more buyers come into the market. We are going to see home prices stabilize. We're not going to be in one of those markets where you're going to see 10 and 15% every year, which is just not sustainable. But we are going to see home prices stabilize. So that's great news for you sellers. That's great news for you buyers that are coming into it. So that is just truly a win-win all around for everybody. The other opportunity that we're seeing out here for people, we touched on it a little bit talking about new builds, that is the emerging neighborhoods that are coming out here. Just to elaborate a little bit more on that, guys, for the most part, on the west side of town, up near the Front Range, right, close to the mountains, a lot of those areas were developed first. So if you guys are looking for new build communities that are along the Front Range, as west as you can go in the state without being in the Rocky Mountains, it's going to be a little bit limited because you just don't have a ton that are up there. However, if you are looking for new build communities that are close to the mountains, one of your two best options are going to be either down south by Castle Rock, where you are very close to the mountains.
Almost in the mountains.
Almost
you kind of feel like you're in the
mountains.
mountains.
Yep. Also going up north as you start getting up towards Fort Collins, Longmont, Loveland, Berthoud, all of those places that were previously just big open agricultural areas, you are starting to see a lot more new build communities pop up in those areas. That Land and Sea builder that Will was talking about earlier, they're up north. They just have absolutely ridiculous rates.
And what's nice about up north, it's flat like southeast Aurora, right? Like it's flat, but it's also closer to the mountains, right? So Fort Collins is literally north right off of I-25. So you're just as close to the mountains as Sterling Ranch, as like Littleton,
Highlands Ranch, a Littleton,
and things like that. But there's not as many hills. Like Highlands Ranch has a lot of hills, a lot of like grassy hills and some tree. Like it's really beautiful, but it does obstruct some of the views once you're in the neighborhood. Up north is almost all flat. You don't have a lot of those rolling hills. So you've got amazing views of the Rocky Mountains and like wheatgrass. Some of the spots you still have some national parks up there, or excuse me, some state parks that are up there that are protected. Obviously some national parks like Estes Park and things like that. So instead of like going I-70 west into Aspen or Breckenridge, if you guys are up north toward Loveland, you guys are a hop, skip, and a jump away from Estes Park, which is the gateway to the Rocky Mountain National Park. So as far as proximity, what you guys have access to, it's amazing. And you're still, believe it or not, within an hour of commuting down to Denver. The only thing I will advise is the same thing we advise when you're south going from Castle Rock to the Springs. Inclement weather and high winds and snow, sometimes they shut the highway down around. The same thing can happen on I-25 North when you're up toward Fort Collins, coming back down into Denver, or Denver to Fort Collins. Sometimes the wind and the snow can get bad enough with blizzard conditions. They shut it down. How often does that happen? Let's be safe and call it twice a year.
Yeah, sure. No.
At least probably once, like we'll get a bad blizzard where it just hurts the visibility. Obviously be safe and things like that, but just something to consider. But outside of that, we get more sunny days in Florida. The snow tends to melt super quick here, and you guys are still on your normal commute within an hour to Denver.
So in addition to up north and down south, those are going to be great if you're really looking for close proximity to the mountains, but you want a new build and you want affordability. The next option is you're seeing a lot of builds going out east. So Aurora Highlands is going to be one of the latest developments.
Big.
Huge, affordable. You are further east, so again, you're further away from the mountains. You can still see them. They are the Rocky Mountains.
And
They're
you're right
still
on
there.
470.
You're right on 470.
You're right on 470,
yes.
so you guys can commute north, you can commute south. Aurora Highlands would be directly north of where I'm at. So I'm in Southeast Aurora in South Shore. If we're showing that on a map right now, you guys can see South Shore. Literally north from us, about 15 minutes would be Aurora Highlands. But again, it's on 470. The reason why I live in South Shore, well, one, Highlands wasn't built yet. Secondly, I love being on 470 because I can travel south, E470 south to I-25 south and go to Castle Rock or the Springs, or I can head north to Boulder, Fort Collins, Arvada, wherever I need to be for clients up north. So for me, and I'm 25 minutes from the airport. You're even closer if you're in Aurora Highlands to the airport as well. So the commute, really hard to beat. They just added a 6th Avenue exit, by the way. If you're not from Denver, you don't know how that's so important. 6th Avenue is a huge thoroughway into Old Aurora and right into Denver. So it's nice that they've got an exit there. Just allows commute to be a lot better. But either way, really stoked about that master plan. They've got a lot of really cool stuff going out there. They've got Pulte Homes, they've got Richmond Homes, a lot of great things out there.
Great deals all across the board, and that's going to be probably the best location for you guys that are looking for the most affordability, and if you need proximity to the airport. If you're in Fort Collins or North Colorado, it's going to be a little bit of a drive, still under an hour. Same if you're down south by Castle Rock, but if you're really looking, if you need to be, at the airport a couple times a month or something, an Aurora Highlands might be a really good option for you.
And the home prices, really competitive, bang for buck. We just did a tour out there not too long ago. I want to say about a month ago, potentially. We did a video. We're covering Pulte Homes out in Aurora Highlands. If you guys haven't seen that, we can put the text in the links below. The link in the text below about that video. But really cool stuff, definitely worth looking at.
Yes, and then finally, guys, just the different types of homes that are being built now. Colorado is notorious for, your standard single-family homes, but what you are starting to see a lot of, especially as these builders have had an opportunity to catch up with the market a little bit, is just a big variety of townhomes in particular. A lot of Denver homes right now and other places are starting to take advantage of these ADUs, so additional dwelling units.
Really creative.
Yeah, just getting really creative with housing options out here.
And I know you're talking townhomes, but there's also, and you'll probably know the word for this, but we've got single-family homes here that technically are conjoined, but behind all the siding and everything, there are 2 separate firewalls, so they do count as single-family homes, but out on the exterior, they are connected, but they're like row homes. And the reason why the single-family home designation is important is because of your rate and how they lend on it versus a townhome or condo. Single-family homes, the way that they lend on it is significantly different and better. So the fact that you've got 2 firewalls in between might not be a huge deal to you, but the lending on it will be a huge deal. But what I'm getting at is what I'm going to call these row homes. You've got like these rooftop patios. So even if you're like inner city Denver or Commerce City, et cetera, like you can still get some amazing views, even though you might be in the heart of a neighborhood and you love it. And they've got some great stuff. Central Park is an amazing place. Central Park has a lot of those, and they've got obviously great parks, hence Central Park. A lot of cool 5Ks and soccer fields that happen out there. But if you're in the middle of that neighborhood and like you don't have much of a view but the neighborhood, not that it's not beautiful, they've done a great job out there. That rooftop patio allows you to see the entire skyline of the Rocky Mountains, which is just really cool. And again, it just gives you an extra benefit, but even though you're inner city, right? So some of these, at least new to Colorado style homes, are also being built, and it's really cool.
Well, and what I love is that they're integrating them within communities. So I think a prime example is, if you guys watched our Sterling Ranch video a couple weeks ago where we toured, it was a true single family. It wasn't attached to anything else, but there was pretty much no backyard landscaping. However, there was 4 different decks, massive decks for you guys to go and eat dinner on.
You had a deck on the main floor. You had 2 decks on the second floor. You had 2 decks on the third floor. 1, 2, 5. One of them impressed me so much. I was coming home almost telling my wife, like, we should just move. This thing is awesome. And obviously we've got 2 big dogs. We've got kids. We like our backyard and all of those things. But for a lot of folks that don't necessarily need a ton of landscape and flowers, and it just looks like upkeep, even though it's nice, but you entertain a lot, or you love to have your friends over. Some of those decks were so impressive. And we were talking in the 7s for some of these homes. Like what Pulte is doing over there in Sterling Ranch is phenomenal.
With some of the best views of the Rocky Mountains that you can find.
Hard to beat.
Yes.
Another thing that's hard to beat is getting to Colorado sooner. If you guys are waiting any longer than 2025 to get here, I think you're crazy. we love it here. It's a great market. It's a great economy. Obviously, we love it, whether it's now or a year from now. Obviously, we're still happy to help you, which is why this number is popping back up below. And we are reminding you that we are licensed brokers here in the state of Colorado. And just as much as we love shooting these videos, we would love more to help you with those real estate needs. So that number that's still up below. We are the guys to answer the phone calls, text messages, and those emails. So guys, if we can help you with your real estate move, living in or moving here to Denver, we would love to. But with that being said, here's everything you have to look forward to as far as tips, tricks. The last thing I'll leave you with is just advising, just make that phone call, even if you're not quite sure the timing of your move. The best thing we can do is just answer your questions specifically for your needs and for your timeline. And maybe we've got some ideas that are just more specific to you versus just your basic tips and tricks for a video that covers this for everybody. But with that being said, you guys enjoy the rest of your weekend, and we will see you here next week.
All right, we'll see you guys.
See you guys.